Die-hard fans of Doctor Who have been claiming for years that Steven Moffat is a better episode writer than showrunner. Once he took over for Russell T Davies, he primarily limited himself to season and mid-season premieres and finales, and the Christmas specials. But once upon a time, he wrote such amazing one-off disconnected episodes such as Blink. And this week's episode is proof that all he had to do was sit back and listen. Honest to God, listen is one of the best things to happen to Doctor Who in a very, very long time. There is so much development and so much meaning and so much added to the characters from this one episode that it makes up completely for the weakness of this season so far since Deep Breath. I know that's hard to say. I really, really dug into Robot of Sherwood last week, but listen is just, honest to God, fucking amazing. Part of that is because we get a lot of Clara. Clara gets a huge amount of development, just an enormous amount. It's the first time we really start to see her shine, and we see her sort of start to take over the show a little bit, which is good because that's the thing. When Doctor Who, came back in the revival, a big part of it, especially when the handoff from Eccleston to David Tennant happened, they wanted the companion to be more the focus of the show than the Doctor himself. The reason for that is it's easy as an audience surrogate for, a human, the person from the modern age, traveling around with this crazy alien like, all the audience is. But we haven't had that in a while. Amy and Rory were very good. I'm a big fan of the two of them. Their dynamic in particular is amazing. The problem is, while they became more confident, while they grew and they had more development over a long period of time, the show during that era was all about Matt Smith, like almost entirely. And it didn't give the characters a very good chance to breathe, I guess. This one, it's really cool. It bounces off of this idea that the Doctor has where, what if, whenever we're talking to ourselves, we're not actually just talking to ourselves? Whenever you feel that prickle on the back of your neck, it's actually a thing. When you wake up in the middle of the night and you think something's there, what if it is there, but it's the perfect hider? You have no way of knowing that it's there no matter what. And it's this crazy quest to figure out what it is, spanning the entirety of time, trying to figure out what it could possibly be. And as active and crazy as that sounds, it's just the backdrop. That's all it is. It's backdrop to a huge amount of growth for Clara. And it's a good amount of backstory too. Not for her so much as like just everybody. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's like really minimal, and yet there's a lot happening at the same time. You start to see the effects of time travel finally, becoming a bit of an issue with Clara. There's a lot there. They go back, they go forth. There's a lot of that stuff, and she's starting to become a little bit weary of it. And you're starting to see that even though she's tried to make herself distant from, everyone in the past, Rose, Martha, Donna, Amy, Rory, they've all made themselves a part of the crew. Like they're an active, they live there, they go there, especially Amy, Rory. It was an escape thing for them. They had no interest in being just regular people. They just wanted to go and adventure. Clara is the exact opposite. She has a job. She has a life. The episode opens with her finally going for that drink with Danny Pink. Like, she has things that she wants at home, and she doesn't want, the time travel and adventures with the Doctor to interfere with that. She'll still jump up at a moment's notice, but she doesn't want, she doesn't want to live a time travel life. And I think even despite that, she's still finding herself dealing with the consequences of that, dealing with what happens when you even meddle with it in the first place.
Isn't it bad if I meet myself?
It is potentially catastrophic.
And you get just, oh man, it's so hard to talk about this in a non-spoiler way just because the whole episode is wrapped together so fucking well. It's ridiculous. Like, I wasn't joking. This harkens back to Blink in a huge way. If only because the whole episode is really tightly wound. All the elements are meaningful. Literally everything that is said and everything that is seen means something. And it's really good how it all comes together. And even stuff from outside of the episode it comes into it, and it adds a lot of meaning and context to a lot of stuff that we didn't really realize before. but it's so hard to talk about just because everything comes back again. So I mean, this is easily, out of the entirety of Doctor Who since it came back, if I had to give a like top 5 episodes to introduce someone to Doctor Who, like, yes, there are a shitload of spoilers for earlier stuff. Well, a shitload amount of spoiler for an earlier piece. But this would be in my top 5 easily. There's Blink. Probably Midnight would be another one. For some reason, it's the one-off episodes that always do it the best. And I think that's because it means that they can write a story that has less to do with, you know, it doesn't have to be fully involved in the plot. It can breathe. It can do things without being sucked into, you know, oh, but we have to do this before this episode's over so that the arc can progress. Literally the only piece of this episode that you know is going to matter for the rest of the season is that Clara and Danny went on that date. It's the only thing that's actually going to be meaning anything later as far as, like, you know, impacting the story. As far as I can tell, there is one other thing that I'll talk about in the spoiler section that may come back, but the rest of it seems like it's all kind of a one-off. It's almost a what if, really. It's really cool. For what it's worth, people talk a lot about Steven Moffat as a showrunner. They have a lot to say about, you know, how if he's a sexist writer, if, you know, he doesn't, you know, play up the companions the same way as Russell T Davies. There's a lot there. It's so much more than I can go into in a review like this. Honestly, I actually like the characterization of Amy, partly because she was different from the previous 3. And, you know, you can't have the same companion forever or it just goes stale and you need to change it up. And she kicked a lot of ass. She really, like, she was a hell of a lot more proactive about getting involved in this shit than any other companion that the Doctor's had since the revival. Rory was a lot more of the defensive. He was a bit more of, you know, the cautious type, trying to make sure everyone was safe, including the Doctor. But, you know, she was a huge part of the plot for that, you know, that 2.5 seasons. Clara is starting to finally come into her own. The big argument that people had against Clara originally was that she was shoehorned into this, the impossible girl thing. And it was, oh, the only reason that she's there, the only reason she matters is because of the Doctor, which isn't true. I would almost argue it goes the other way. The reason that the Doctor, you know, the Doctor owes his life to Clara, which is kind of a neat plot point. And we've seen stuff in previous episodes that suggests that connection isn't necessarily over yet. But she's proving herself now outside of that. She's not just important because she lived 3 times and the Doctor figured it out and yada yada. She's becoming a valuable asset to that team. In Deep Breath, she finally seemed to, like, it snapped in her brains, like, I have to take risks. I have to be willing to, you know, be actively a part of solving the problem. In this one, she is the main character of Listen, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, you follow her more than you follow the Doctor. And she is pretty much the one solving everything. And you get to see it through her eyes. You get to see how she's processing this stuff. And there's a lot of expression. Her acting in this episode in particular is really good because there's some bombshells that get dropped in this one. And her reactions, you know, sell it really well. They definitely convey, you know, the mood of that particular moment so that the audience, you know, understands what's happening. So it's you know, Jenna Coleman is, you know, A++ on this one. And it's good to see Clara take the front seat. I like that. Not that this Doctor is necessarily boring in any way or that he's grandstanding or anything. I actually like his more subdued nature a little bit too. Matt Smith's constantly goofy, cartoonish, loud thing. Like, even 10 knew when to be quiet. 11 wasn't very quiet unless he was angry. So it's nice to see a Doctor that can kind of mix it up a little bit. This one's going to be a short review just because I have so little that I can say about it, and I want so desperately for anyone watching this, if you haven't seen the episode yet, go watch it immediately. It's so good. I loved it. I hope that you guys like it too. And it's proof that, you know, Steven Moffat can write. You know, he pretty much does, I mentioned earlier, he pretty much does premieres and finales. and Christmas specials and mid-season finales and specials and all that stuff. The only exceptions, the only stuff that he's written that has not been a premiere finale of the whole season or mid-season and a Christmas special are The Beast Below, which was his second episode as showrunner. So, that makes sense. And, oh God, I'm going to forget the name of it. The one with the Weeping Angels and River. Flesh and Stone. And, oh, damn it, I forgot the other one. Oh, yeah, whatever. But, that one was a pretty important one because he was that was him bringing River officially into his version of the show, which was a definite, needed thing that had to happen for a whole bunch of different plot stuff that was going on. So, this is the first time that he's had any episode at all during his show running period where it's been an episode that has nothing to do with the plot overall, almost at all. It's really impressive, and it harkens back to Blink a lot. There's a lot of familiar feelings, and Blink was fucking amazing. It really was. I loved that fucking episode. And most people cite that as the best episode of the series so far, since it came back. And I don't know that I can necessarily agree outright, but it's certainly in the top 5. So I think that Steven Moffat is an okay showrunner. I don't know if he could necessarily be better or worse. There were elements of Series 7 that were starting to feel kind of old, and honestly, just knowing ahead of time that Amy and Rory were leaving was kind of bumming me out because it ruined a lot of the flavor of that particular series, and a lot of the sort of foreshadowing was instantly like, oh, it's because they're disappearing. You lose some of that effect. As far as homework, I would personally say just go watch the episode because it's that good. But if you want to get the full effect, you should watch from Series 4, you should definitely watch Blink. Sorry, Series 3, you should watch Blink. There's also Hyde from last season, which is, the trailers presented it as a similar story to Hyde, and I can see some similarities, between those, and it's got a lot of similar thematic plot points, so that one's a pretty good one. The Day of the Doctor, the actual 50th anniversary special, would be a big one. I would say Utopia is probably a pretty okay one to do. It's not as necessary as the rest. Definitely Midnight, another sort of bottle-style episode, and it was actually compared to this was compared to in some ways as Steven Moffat's Midnight. They were produced at almost the exact same point in their careers as the showrunners, and it's got a lot of similar stuff going on there. And finally, there's actually a connection near the end. There's a bit of a connection to the Time Monster, which was a third Doctor episode or serial, I believe. I won't say why. It's a pretty big deal, but when you get there, you'll see the connection. I don't have a whole lot else to say about it right now, but if you watch the spoilery version, I'm going to have a hell of a lot more to go off of. So I'll see you over there. Have a good one. And next time will be Time Heist. Later.